I don't do anything special to take care of my plants, I'm just really consistent. So here's 4 boring things that I do to keep my plants healthy and thriving. I understand the lighting in my home on a very deep level. I use a light meter to track the light throughout the course of the day. You can use a free app on your phone. You can spend $20 on a light meter device. You can spend several $100s on a par meter. Any method is valid, but I always test my light. Throughout the day, the light in my home kind of looks like this. With all of this light combined in the summer, I have a light score of 5. At 5 DLI, that puts me in a great range to grow Monstera, whose light score is recommended from 1 to 22, or even this rubber tree, whose light score is recommended from 3 to 43. Unfortunately, even with big floor-to-ceiling south-facing windows, growing something like a fishbone cactus might not work for me. That plant does have a higher recommended light score between 9 and 43 DLI. Understanding the light in my own space, choosing plants that do well in that space, and supplementing with grow lights when I can is the exact reason why my plants do so well. Now, this isn't to say you can't grow these higher light score plants in lower light conditions, but if you are trying to grow optimally where plants grow their best, it's usually better to choose a more appropriate plant or just be okay with something not looking its best. Another way I stay consistent is by watering my plants on a schedule. If you grow indoors like me, it's very likely that your home stays in relatively similar conditions depending on the season. Say you're watering a plant and you discover that this Monstera always dries out every 11 to 13 days. So then you can feel pretty confident in setting a reminder to water this plant every 12 days. This jade plant during the summertime gets watered every 20 days. And during the winter time, it gets watered every 35 days. I've been doing this to my jade plant without fail for the last 5 years, and this is the level of improvement that it's made. The only thing that you must do if you want to water your plants on a strict schedule is to make sure to audit them every 1 to 3 months to make sure that your schedule is still appropriate. This means that before watering day, you're using a moisture meter or a wooden stake, or even pulling the plant out of its pot to inspect the roots to make sure that it's still ready to be watered. From here, you can see if your plant is too wet or too dry and make slight modifications. You could push back your watering days if needed, or you might discover that as your plant is growing and the roots take up more space in the pot, it dries out faster and you need to water more frequently. Most people say that you should never water your plants on a strict schedule, but I disagree. And they do have some key arguments that always come up when having this conversation. They say changes in light affect how often you water your plant. That's true, but assuming you're keeping your plant in the same spot on a week-to-week basis over the course of 3 months, for example, the average light that your plant is going to receive doesn't actually change that much. The average light scores are still going to be in within 2 to 3 DLI in that specific month. Then they say, what if my weather is super cloudy for several weeks? So here's a map of average sunshine hours, and the darker blue areas have more clouds. Over the course of 3 months, the cloudy and sunny days are still going to average out. If by chance you are setting up a new plant's watering schedule in an abnormally sunny period, and then it gets followed by weeks and weeks and weeks of cloud cover, then yes, you would obviously have to adjust your watering schedule immediately. What if you're going through a heat wave? While I have central heating and cooling, it's important to remember that in a lot of cities, especially older European cities, temperatures during heat waves can rise really quickly, even reaching up to 32 degrees or 90 degrees Fahrenheit indoors. Yes, that temperature is super uncomfortable, often dangerous, and yes, of course, you would have to adjust your watering schedule accordingly. Because with higher temperatures, plants are going to dry out significantly faster. Living in Ontario, Canada, basically everything from mid-July to mid-August is just heat wave after heat wave after heat wave. We know it's coming, so I know that I have to set a different watering schedule for all my plants. This is the auditing that I'm talking about. The last excuse I often hear is that when your plant grows, its watering needs are going to change. That's why you can't set a strict schedule. Yes, that's why you audit your plants every 1 to 3 months. And within that 3-month period, it's very unlikely that your plant is going to change so significantly that you're in danger of under or overwatering your plant. So what I'm saying is this: people use very specific exceptions or use weather exceptionalities to just rule out watering schedules completely. Yes, obviously it would be irresponsible to water your plant on the exact same schedule year round, year after year, making no changes whatsoever. But with auditing your plants every 1 to 3 months and paying attention to those weather exceptionalities, using a watering schedule is an easy and effective way to manage both small and large plant collections. Another boring thing I do is I consistently fertilize my plants. The laziest way to do this is to buy any slow release fertilizer and read the directions on the bottle. Plant influencers love to overcomplicate fertilizer because on the surface it is so boring and we need to jazz it up for short form video views. Especially if you watch some of my arch nemesis, those home hack influencers that constantly convince you to put bananas in your water or grind up boiled chicken bones and put it into your soil. Don't do any of that. There is enough soil science for you to get a PhD, but then you'll have to move to Manitoba, and after 3 years getting your doctorate, you'll come back and you'll still probably end up using Osmocote anyway. So this is actually how boring and easy applying fertilizer is for your indoor houseplants, and this is literally what I do every single year over and over and over without fail. Buy any brand of slow release fertilizer. I literally do not care. Don't ask me for a recommendation. Basically, Miracle-Gro is the most popular, and I would buy anything else off the shelf, but this is what's there. On the side, it has the directions of what you need to do. Down here, it literally says how much depending on your container size. If your pot is 6 inches in diameter, you put in 1 1/4 teaspoon. If your pot is 14 inches, you put in 5 tablespoons. I made a spreadsheet that graphs out how much fertilizer you need from, I think, a 3-inch pot all the way up to a 20-inch pot. And what I did is I put a little cheat sheet on the back of my fertilizer. This is specific to Miracle-Gro, but I'm pretty sure it's the same for all slow release fertilizer. If you see an arrow pointing down, that means just under. And if you want to pause it, take a picture or a screenshot, you can do that too. From there, just know your pot size. This is 8 inches in diameter, so 8 inches is 1 tablespoon. That's it. You don't really need to do anything else. You can let the fertilizer sit on the top. It's a bit better if you grind it into the soil, but it doesn't matter. This plant is done being fertilized for the next 3 months. Here's another 8-inch pot. This plant is done. This neon pothos is in a 4-inch pot and it gets just below 1 teaspoon. That's done for 3 months. Then just do the rest of your collection. These 2-inch pots up here get 2/3 of a teaspoon. My giant rubber tree gets around 4 or 5 tablespoons. This giant Tycon gets 5 tablespoons. You can just streamline everything and it's pretty quick. I use full strength fertilizer following the directions exactly in spring and summer, and half strength in fall and winter. An extremely boring thing I do is I keep my houseplant collection pest-free. Keeping a collection pest-free is as simple as understanding the life cycle of your target pest and 3 simple rules: your danger stage, your protected stage, and any other special effects that your pest might have. Now, I'm sorry if this sounds like a video game, but let's look at one of the most annoying pests to have, thrips. Their danger stage is their adult form. They live the longest out of any of their other forms, and in their lifetime they can lay up to 300 eggs. For their danger form, you need to be spraying or treating daily for the longest aspect of their life, which is the adult stage at 45 days. So that means you need to be treating or spraying daily for 45 days in total. Now, thrips have 2 protected stages, one in their egg form and one in their pupa form. Their egg form is protected because thrips lay eggs inside the tissue of the leaf, so you can't actually get to them. And their pupal form is protected because they bury themselves into the soil of the plant. That means after the initial 45 days, you want to spray these for the shortest life cycle of their protected stage. So that means you are spraying once every 2 days. Now, while you're doing all of this, the last thing to consider is any special effects that this pest has, and you need to know that thrips fly. And because they can fly, that means they have the potential to be anywhere in your home on any plant. So this does mean that you may need to treat your entire plant collection daily for 45 days and then every 2 days for about a month. And this is why having a reduced plant collection is one of the most important things you can have for your sanity, because you will get pests eventually. Let's follow these 3 steps: danger, protected, and special, for a slightly more complicated pests: scale. Personally, I find scale to be one of the most fascinating of all of the common houseplant pests. Once scale eggs hatch, they produce crawlers that live between 1 to 2 weeks and can go anywhere on the plant. They can also jump from plant to plant through contact. Now, because their most dangerous stage is 2 weeks, you'll want to spray daily for 14 days. Pretty much all of scale is a protected stage. Once they're finished this crawler phase and they start to molt into their instars, they develop this hard outer shell and they basically can't be touched for the entire life cycle until they hatch out of the egg and become a crawler again. They're protected for 6 to 8 weeks as they get bigger and bigger to finally get to an egg-laying adult stage. Once they start laying eggs for 3 to 4 weeks, they're still protected for 1 to 3 weeks as the eggs are protected under the hard shell of the scale. So following our same rule for their protected stage, we'll find the shortest span, and that means that we should be spraying once every 7 days. I kind of did talk about why they're special. They're basically invincible for their entire life cycle except during this 1 to 2 week period when they're in their crawler stage. Because their hard outer shell generally protects them from any kind of topical spray, spraying them with insecticidal soap or an alcohol spray doesn't really work. So you need to take them off physically by either scraping them off, but one of my favorite techniques is to use some kind of tape like painter's tape or scotch tape, put it on the adult, and then rip them off that way. And also the males turn into these little flying gnats, but they don't really do anything. I'm not even sure if they eat, so generally we don't talk about them. If this sounds like a lot of work, it really is, and that's why I highly recommend people keep a reduced plant collection. And if your infestations do get really bad, throwing your plants out can be so much better just for your own sake of your mental health. You can check out this video here where I dumped at least half of my plant collection to finally get rid of my thrips. And for those people who are saying just use beneficial bugs, well, no, not really. I can recommend a 1-hour video from my friend Jenna Plants. It's in the description, but it's a highly detailed explanation of the very, very specific things that you can do to combat thrips with beneficial insects. And trust me, following this method will save you a ton of money.